Greetings and welcome back to Switch to Linux. So today what we are going to do is we are going to start a Gimp tutorial. Several people have been asking about some of the programs. So the two major areas I plan on doing some tutorials in the very near future are Gimp, which we're going to break into several videos. I don't want to spend any large amount of time on one video. I want to kind of try and keep these short and concise and to the point. So I'm going to do some tutorials on Gimp, and I'm also going to start doing some tutorials on WordPress, and I'm going to put on my different shirt for WordPress. I'm going to put on my web developer's shirt for my WordPress stuff. I'm going to keep this one at Switch to Linux because while I use Gimp for web design, we're just going to talk about it in terms of switching to Linux. So I've identified a few key items that we are going to do with Gimp. And Gimp, of course, is the manipulation program for Linux. It's actually cross-platform. So even if you are working on Windows or Mac, you can use Gimp. In fact, I have Photoshop for Windows because I've been in web design long before I've been using Linux. And so I have a full professional Photoshop, in fact, a full professional creator suite over there on Windows. But for my Mac, I actually run Gimp over on my Mac because I'm not buying software from my Mac. I'm using open source and free software. So I have LibreOffice and I have Gimp. You know, my Mac is an open source computer other than the fact that it's a crazy expensive operating system. So what we are going to do here with Gimp is we are going to the first tutorial is going to be about setting up the workspace and doing some file management. So that's kind of what we're going to be focused on. So what we're going to do is, well, after I unmount my NAS server, we're going to jump over here. So here's my desktop, and what we're going to do is just open up Gimp. And so it's under Graphics, under Gimp Image Manipulator. And when you first open up Gimp, of course, this is GNU Image Manipulation Program, is what Gimp stands for. You see it up there. Now, when you first open Gimp, you get this dialog box here that really confuses the bejeebers out of a lot of people. In fact, like literally over here, this guy, I don't know why, but it shot itself way over here on the other side of my screen. And this just kind of produces a mess. I have no idea why. There's probably some logic why they broke it all up like this. Most people are not comfortable with this. So the first thing we're going to do is convert this to single window mode. So to do that, you want to come up here to Window, come down and hit single window mode. That's it. And barring any weird configuration explosion in your home folder, it will always open up like this now. What I do notice is that depending on your computer, my other computer, which might be running an older version of Gimp, I just don't know what version it's on, occasionally it doesn't run, like when you hit the maximize and minimize, it doesn't actually scale itself properly. What I have to do on that computer, if that happens to be your problem, is come down here to Edit and Preferences, and just come over here and just toggle the themes. It doesn't matter which theme you're on, but this computer always works fine. It maximizes correctly. My other computer, which is my backup web design computer, it doesn't actually work right for some reason. But anyway, now that we are in this mode here, and I'm going to go ahead and take off my picture there for a few minutes. So what we have set up, now I've done a little bit of this workspace setup, but that's the next thing we're going to show you how to do. Well, actually, we're going to do that in a few minutes. The next thing we're going to do is keyboard shortcuts. You can see I have various tools over here. I have layers and a few other tools. I have some brushes over here, palettes, gradients, and then over here I have my tool options bar, and then I have this shortcut menu over here. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to get this set up the way you like. You may not like the way I have it set up. That's perfectly okay. But we will show you how to go ahead and do that. Of course, you can scale these larger or smaller just by dragging the regions and locations. And if you make them large enough, you'll actually see the labels up there that will tell you what it is. If you go small enough, I believe if you hover over them, it will give you the titles. So you can do the same thing over here as well. You can increase them, decrease them. Also of note, back here in the Edit Preferences and Themes, The defaults, I'm sure you can get more themes. I've never bothered looking into it. What I have here is good. But we have a default and we have a small. And the difference is, are your icons big or are your icons small? I generally, as you can tell, some people are like, why do you have this set so small? I like it this way. I'm actually not totally blind, and I like small icons out of the way as long as I can clearly see them. So I use the small theme when I can. All right. So the next thing what we're going to do is we're going to look at the keyboard shortcuts. Now, I am coming into Gimp, and I'm using Gimp more and more and more. In fact, the other day, I totally impressed myself. I wrote an entire book cover for a book I'm writing entirely in Gimp. And it was awesome because I thought it would take me 2 or 3 days to do the thing. I did it in 3 hours. Now, I'm a professional in Photoshop, and so for me, learning how to do things in Gimp, even though it's not as intuitive as it is because things are a little bit different from Photoshop, the applications, the use, everything else is excellent. But I say all that because coming from Photoshop, you will find that a lot of the keyboard shortcuts are different. Now, you might want to change the keyboard shortcuts to what you're used to, or you might want to start learning what their keyboard shortcuts are. That's your individual call. But there are some things, there are no keyboard shortcuts set by default in Gimp. And so what I want to do, and those are things that I use daily on Photoshop. And so I want to set up keyboard shortcuts, and I'm just going to go ahead and use the same keyboard shortcuts that Photoshop uses. So we're going to show you how to do the keyboard shortcuts. So what we want to do is we want to go into Edit and Keyboard Shortcuts. And then what we will have here is this big dialog box that will enable us to identify an individual item. So I'm going to make this as big as I can make it for now. And then what you'll see, let me actually drop it down just a little. What you'll see here is that these correspond to the various menus that we have. If you expand this link here, then you will see all of the options inside of that menu. And then you will see over here is what the name is, and this is the shortcut. So you'll see some of them are disabled. One of them I think that is disabled by default is the I believe it's the export as. Let's see, where's it at? Okay, so the export as is one, and where's it at? Oh, there it is, export as, it's near the top. I actually set this, and what I did is I set this as the default key as it is on my Photoshop for export for web, which is an unfortunate feature that I've not found yet in Gimp. It might be there. If the export as web, if you are familiar with Photoshop and you know what export as web does and Gimp can do it, please let me know where. I'd love to update the videos with that information. In short, what this does on Photoshop is it allows you to take any image, whatever it is, and save it for web, which means it cuts the resolution down to 72. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to walk through how to do a resolution change on the image. We're going to actually do that hopefully in the second tutorial, not in this one. But what I'm doing here is because Gimp saves by default in its own format, which I think is XCF or something, at least those 3 letters in some random order. Well, specific, but whatever. But I wanted to have a means to use, when you click save, it saves in the Gimp Photoshop file, or the Gimp file, Photoshop, bad, the Gimp file. And what you want to do is hit the export as is the option that will allow you to save it as some other type. Not even save as. That will just let you change the name of the Gimp layered file. But export as will allow you to save it as any image type that is available. So I went ahead and changed that to Control, Shift, Alt, and S. So because I'm just so used to hitting that button to save an image as. And so there's an open location, there's the overwrite, there's your save a copy. So a lot of these are things I don't generally use, and so I'm not going to go ahead and do those. The one area that I do use the images here that are not yet set is under image. I use the scale image, and I use the canvas size constantly. And so what I'm going to do is use this as a means to set those. So you can see here canvas size. So what you're going to do is click where it says disabled, and now it says new accelerator. So now what you need to do, if you just click off of this, it goes back to disabled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Control, Alt, and push C, because that's what I'm used to change the canvas size. So now you'll see that it will change that. And then we're going to do the same for the scale image, only this is Alt, Control, and I. So those are the ones that I'm used to. You'll see that it is saving the keyboard shortcuts on exit. Now suppose I make a mistake on those. What I can do is just click it and push the backspace key, and the backspace key goes to disabled. So apparently you can't use backspace as a key, which is probably a good thing. All right, so there's how you do that. Just hit the close button to save anything. So you can go through there, you can look at every menu item. Every single menu item has its own setup there. And of course, as you can see here, that once we have added those, it will add it to the menu. So if there is a shortcut for an individual item, then you will see that it will be listed here to the right of the item in the menu. If there is nothing there, it means it is disabled. So if there is a tool you find yourself using a lot, you might want to just go ahead and set up a hotkey for that. It'll make your production day a whole lot faster. Okay, so the next thing is the toolbars. So we have 3 different places where toolbars are sitting. So one is over here, and you can tell from this arrow right here. One is up here. And one is where my image is. So let me get rid of my image. So here is my other one here. Okay, so what you can do with these is the arrows will allow you to add different tabs, and then inside the tabs you can add various different tool options. Now, one of the things that you might find yourself accidentally doing is if you're over here working with a tool or whatever. Now, the tool options here, I like the tool options right under my panel because these will change based upon which tool you have selected. Okay. So you might be over here doing something and you accidentally grab a tool option and drag it around. And then it appears over here and you're like, get it back! How do you get it back? Well, don't grab the black part. You're going to get it back by grabbing the tool option. And this will allow you to drop it over here, or back over where it was. So that's how you do that. When there are no other floating toolbars, your black bar will go away. Now, if you know for a fact you don't want to do that, you can come down here, pull this down, and you can lock tab to dock. And with this tab locked to the dock, you cannot accidentally get rid of it. And so that might be an option for you if you know you have this set up exactly the way you like. You might just come down and lock the tab to the dock. And what you'll notice is that the lock the tab to the dock is specific for the individual tab that you have. So this one is locked to the dock. The channels is not locked to the dock. So I could move that one around if I wanted. Okay. So that is how you can adjust your toolboxes. So then what you'll want to do is go through, figure out the type of work that you do, the tools that you need to get that work done, and then drop your toolboxes. The reason I have these the way I have them set up is because over here is frequently I use this. I use Gimp every single day here when I'm working on my banners and my titles. And so let me show you how I do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open this up, go into Documents, and I have Banner XCF. So that's it. The PSD is where I originally did this in Photoshop, migrated it over, and then converted it to Gimp. I could actually delete that at this point. We're going to go ahead and open this, and you can see here what we have. So what I do is I just have this base, and then whatever my title is for the day, I just come down here, highlight it, and this is the new title. And if it ends up being 2 lines, then what I end up doing now is coming up here, grabbing this guy and dragging it around. Okay, so that's what I end up doing. In fact, that is the other thing that I use a lot. I don't even know where it is. Is it? I guess it's under this one here. Looking for where the move option happens to be. Let me know if you see it. Not that you can tell me because I'm pre-recording this video. That's the one option I really want to set a hotkey for. I'm just so used to being on Photoshop pushing V to be able to move something. Measure, zoom, toolbox, swap colors, filter, windows. I don't know. I'll find it. I'll find it eventually here. But regardless, I'll find it here off camera and do it. So basically, this, though, will allow me to set up my tools to have my colors over here. Now, I have set this as the default because this image here, at least for this image, the default will keep my yellow color, which matches the Linux color that I'm using. And it changes the font, which is Simplified Arabic, is the font that I'm using on all my Linux stuff here. And then I have brushes over here. So if I happen to need to erase something, I can go ahead and erase something. I don't frequently erase something over here. All right. So I can go ahead and grab the tool there. So like here's the brush and I can sponge erase stuff. Of course, I could star erase stuff. Now that I have my eraser tool over here, I can select my brush over here. I can pick my size and my opacity over here. So, you know, and we'll cover a whole lot more detail about doing this kind of stuff later. So there's, whoa, we're going crazy. All right, so that's kind of how you do that. I'm going to close this and I'm going to discard changes because I do not want to accidentally save over that file. It'd be like, ah. I have a copy on my other computer too. But anyway, you'll see how I set up my toolboxes in a way to more efficiently work beyond things. I can select layers up here, brush layers down here, and tool options over here. And that's just kind of the way I do it. So the next thing you want to do is file management. So looking at our file management, how do you open a file? How do you close a file? How do you save a file? So up here on the file menu, you have your open option. And under your open option, it'll just pull up a dialog box where you can open your file. Now, the other option that you have is you can, and these are my cute kitties having a little kitty fight. Cat fight, cat fight. And the cat just stared at me. All right. So with this, the next thing you can do is another way you can open a file is to just open it. So let me open up. I'm going to open up my DRMSOR. Okay, so if you hit the open button there, then it will open it up, and you'll see up here in the top we have two different tabs now, one for the original image and one for the second image. Now suppose I want this image on the original cat image, and I'm going to have my kitty cats teaming up against my DRMSOR. There is an option for that, and that is called Open as Layers. So if you open as layers, now you'll see that instead of opening a new tab, it opens a new layer. So now with my layer being selected, I can drag this guy around where I want it, or I can do other image manipulations that we will do later. So that's how you open a file and open it as a layer. So then the next thing you want to look at here is if you want to save a file. So if I'm going to save this file, you'll see it wants to save as an XCF file. I can save as XCF. I can do an XCF archive, bzip, or a gzip archive. So those are my options under save. So that's a little bit different from a lot of programs, particularly if you're migrating from a Windows system, that you might be looking for. You might be looking for a way to save a file. You're like, how do I save a JPEG? Not with save or save as. Neither of those will do it. Save as will also give us only those options. What you need to do is you need to export as. So this is the one. Now, the one thing you can do is you can overwrite this file. Since this is layered, it will flatten the file. Or if you export as, now what you want to do is you want to come down here and grab the type of file you want to export it as. So what I'm going to do here is let's first export as a ping, which I should not do. So I'm going to call this, if I just call this cat and hit export, okay, you'll notice it will say you do not have a file extension. This is one of those quirky things with some of these Linux programs is it will not automatically give you the file extension like it will in some other applications. I have to type in what the exact file extension is. So now I'm typing cat.png, hit export, and now it will give me my options for my export file. Okay, I can also export as a JPEG. So if I pick this, I can use the extension JPG, JPEG, or JPE. It will tell you what the extensions are here. So I want to change this, JPG. Okay, so here's your quality size. Our advanced options will give us, a few other options here to export. So there we have exported, and now what we will do is we'll see here's my original, which has my larger extension. Here's my cat.ping file with my DRM sort over it. And here is my cat.jpg file, also with the DRM sort over it. All right. So let's see, we've looked at our opening as layers, saving file, saving a file as, let's see if there's anything else in here. I guess the other thing you can do is you can create a template from this image. I can cover templating in a future video. But there is a very quick overview, again, how we would set up our workspace and doing basic file management in Gimp. And of course, as always, save your work regular, save your work often, and it's also an important thing if you are going to be doing a lot of manipulations of some images, make a separate copy, a backup copy before you start your file manipulation, and then you can open up your file and then go ahead and manipulate your file from there. So next week we should be back with a part 2, and what we're going to do on our part 2 tutorial is we're going to be looking at some simple image manipulations, coloring, scaling, cropping, etc., all those types of things. So with that, I hope that this tutorial has been helpful. If you like what I am doing here, you can feel free to jump over to patreon.com/TomM. Support us on Patreon over there, and there will also be Amazon links below in the event you are looking for something soon on Amazon. Feel free to use our store link, and that'll send a small portion of your sale back to Switch to Linux. So with that, thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.